Let's start. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Page 3, starting on page 3.
And given that there's so much going on in the world, we thought we would try to bring a taste of joy. I'm not on? I thought I was on.
You're on.
Am I on?
You are, yeah.
But you can't hear me?
No?
Is that better? All right. So, you may have to turn it down when I start to sing. We want to bring some joy to this evening, a respite, a little oasis in the midst of everything we're dealing with in the world today.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shana Tova.
Shana Tova.
Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I know we've asked you a lot this week. You've been with us so much. And I can tell you it gets easier because you are going to be with us this season a little bit more. So we appreciate you being here tonight in person and those who are streaming online. This Shabbat is the first Shabbat of the new year, 5,785. Yeah, we made it. We did make it. It's also a special Shabbat. It's Shabbat Shuvah, which is the Shabbat of return. And that is the Shabbat which is in between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. We get the name Shuvah. Shabbat Shuvah comes from the Haftarah that we read this Shabbat from the book of Hosea, which says, "Return, O Israel, to Adonai your God." And the question is always, what do we return to? What is that place that we return to? What is that godliness? What is that God's voice? What is that source of health, source of healing, or whatever God is to you symbolizes? What is that place that we return to? So I hope that we can return this Shabbat Shuvah and in the new year that we can return to what it is that makes us human and human beings. So I'm going to invite you, if you seated next to somebody that you haven't met yet, or seated next to somebody that you love sitting next to, or to just say hello and Shana Tova and Shabbat Shalom and all those sweet and good words of the new year. Continue bringing light and warmth into this day of Shabbat by kindling our Shabbat candles. I'd like to invite, it's my honor to invite up to help us bring light into the world, Miriam Wardenmaker, who also serves as a side job as Rabbi Heath's mother. We are on page 10.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu להדליק נר, להדליק נר של שבת.
Now we continue sanctifying the day of Shabbat with Kiddush. And I'd love to invite Anne Dehovitz and Amy Esin to lead us in sanctifying the day of Shabbat. We are still on page 10.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav, v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodsho, v'ahava uvratzon, hinchilanu, zikaron lema'aseh v'reshit, ki hu yom tehillah, למקראי קודש, זכר ליציאת מצרים. כי בנו בחרת, ואותנו קידשת מכל העמים, ושבת קודשך באהבה וברצון הנחלתנו. ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת.
Continue on page 22 with the words of Lecha Dodi. On the last stanza, we will raise and face the door as we physically and symbolically welcome in Shabbat.
Yeah.
There is no human being who does not carry a treasure in the soul, a moment of insight, a memory of love, a dream of excellence, a call to worship. On page 26, we remain standing for the Baruch Hu. Love beyond all space and time, your love unfolds your people Israel. We receive it in your teachings, your gift of Torah, sacred obligations, discipline, and law. So let us speak these teachings when we lie down and when we rise up, and find joy forever in your Torah and mitzvot. They are the very essence of our lives, ours to ponder and study all day. May we never lose or be unworthy of your love. Ahavat Olam. Page 32, we turn to our prayer of oneness, the Shema.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shekevod Malchuto Leolam.
May be seated. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם. אמת. We turn now to page 40, but first we read together on page 41, Crossing the Sea. Eternal, watch over our small dominion of light and shadow, those few people who share my love and all others upon this earth, that sometimes shakes with thunder and reverberates with lightning. Help us to live with fear and conquer rage. Heal the hate that makes us kill
and covers the ground with this Red Sea that only you can part. So we may all walk through the wilderness to your realm of peace, where all men and women are one, and sing your blessed name.
Page 40.
Who is like you? Adonai. Who is like you?
On page 44, we continue with our song for Shabbat. Page 46, excuse me. Vishamru, from the book of Exodus. Let all of Israel keep Shabbat and celebrate Shabbat for all generations as an everlasting covenant.
Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et HaShabbat לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל, בני ישראל אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם.
Unless we aspire to the utmost, we shrink to inferiority. Prayer is our attachment to the utmost. We continue with our Amidah, our standing prayer. If you are able, I invite you to rise. We'll begin together on page 48 with the opening meditation, that whatever words are in our hearts or on our minds, whatever words we need to utter, to offer, to argue tonight, those are words of prayer. Those are words of engagement with that beyond ourselves, engagement perhaps with the divine. We'll sing this opening meditation together and then take some time for our own private prayers. The words on the page go through page 72, and you'll note that there are some special insertions tonight for this special Shabbat, Shabbat Shuvah, so look out for those as well. They come in fast, so, and once you've finished your prayer, you can be seated. But as I said, we'll begin together, page 48. It is my pleasure tonight to welcome our guest speakers, Rabbi Amy Eilberg and Professor Louis Newman, to our bima in just a moment. Don't get up yet. First and foremost, I am most excited that they are here because they are speaking and I am not, which I am immensely grateful to you both for agreeing to speak on this particular Shabbat. Nor is Rabbi Nambi or Rabbi Nematov, so thank you for letting us off the hook. And Kal v'chomer, as they say in rabbinic tradition, all the more so, they are both wonderful people and have a really important talk to give tonight. A bit about Rabbi Eilberg, who is the first woman ordained as a conservative rabbi by the Jewish Theological Seminary of America. She serves as a spiritual director, peace and justice educator, and teacher of Musar. She serves as chair of the Racial Justice Subcommittee of the Conservative Movement's Social Justice Commission, and has a wonderful book called From Enemy to Friend, Jewish Wisdom and the Pursuit of Peace. And Professor Louis Newman, who happens to also be Rabbi Amy Eilberg's husband, they come as a pair, though not always, is a renowned scholar of Jewish ethics, taught at Carleton College for more than 30 years before serving as the Dean of Academic Advising and Associate Vice Provost for Undergraduate Education at Stanford from 2016 to 2022. He's the author of the book Repentance, The Meaning and Practice of Shuvah, which you may recall we spent all of Elul reading last month before welcoming Professor Newman here at Beth Am for Slichot last year as our preparation for the High Holy Days. And his most recent book is called Thinking Critically in College, The Essential Handbook for Student Success. Their talk tonight, Dr. Newman is also the chair of the New Israel Fund's Regional Council here in our area. And their talk tonight is called Experiencing Grief, Pursuing Justice, Doing Collective Teshuvah, A View from Israel. Rabbi Eilberg and Dr. Newman, it is a pleasure to welcome you back to our Beth Am Bima.
Well, thank you so much for the lovely invitation. Yes, I'm well aware that you were doing us a favor by inviting us here, and there was a little bit of our giving something back to the very, very weary rabbis. Yeah. So I have to say that this talk may not contribute to the tone of happiness that the rabbis and the cantors invited as the primary energy for tonight. We're here to talk about a trip that we took to Israel and a little bit to the West Bank at the end of May. So, it used to be that 4 months, we could remember 4 months ago. But it seems like it's been about a decade of events since even about a month ago. We've been attacked. We've attacked back. Questions. Israel is at war on multiple fronts. Tremendous fear about what's happening with Iran. So what we're going to give you is, in a way, a snapshot of what we saw and felt and heard in Israel and to some extent on the West Bank at the end of May. And some of the things that we saw are still true. Some of the tone, there's a whole different level of differently directed set of reasons for anxiety in Israel than there was then. But you'll hear. And the other thing that's different, of course, is that this is Shabbat Shuvah. And so as Louis and I looked back at our notes about what we learned, the theme of Shuvah is really very, very relevant to the things that we learned, both about having descended into the heart of some of the things that are really troubling in Israel, that were troubling in Israel before October 7th and since, and also an inspiring look at some of the really heroic peace and justice seekers in Israel and Palestine, who I dare say, even now in October, are doing their very best to exemplify human values and Jewish values. So if there's not sort of happy, clappy sort of energy from this, I hope there will be at least some sense of hope and perhaps even inspiration.
I want to begin by just saying a little bit about the overall type of trip that we were on and a little bit about the New Israel Fund for those of you who may not be familiar with it. The New Israel Fund has been around for more than 40 years. It supports a whole range, many dozens of progressive nonprofit organizations in Israel devoted to things like safeguarding democracy, upholding human rights, promoting social and economic equality, equality for Palestinian citizens of Israel, advancing shared society, that is Jewish-Palestinian shared society initiatives, issues of religious pluralism, particularly for the non-Orthodox Jews in Israel, and they support a number of progressive think tanks as well. If I dare say there's any organization in Israel working in the areas of human rights and civil rights and coexistence and religious pluralism, it either is or has been supported by the New Israel Fund. It also includes a whole branch, an element of the New Israel Fund is called Shatil, which is its capacity building, because the New Israel Fund long ago figured out that just handing out money to organizations wasn't enough. They had to actually help these organizations get rooted, get organized, build capacity, so that they could do their work even more effectively. And since October 7th of last year, of course, the New Israel Fund has been involved for the first time in some direct service work. So for people who were displaced by the terrorist attacks, New Israel Fund stepped in when, frankly, in many cases, the government was missing in action, and helped find places for people to stay, food for people to eat, and so forth. Amy and I have been on a number of New Israel Fund study tours over the years. The purpose of these tours is to bring people like us, who've been supporters of the New Israel Fund, to the country, give us a chance to meet with the representatives of some of the organizations that the New Israel Fund supports, and in a certain way help us sort of commit ourselves to the work that they do, but also learn from people on the ground really what's happening in the moment. A couple of quick examples, just so you have a sense of what these organizations are. ACRI, which is the Association for Civil Rights in Israel, which you might think of as the ACLU of Israel, one of the flagship grantees of the New Israel Fund. There's something called the Civil Society Protection Hub, which works to help all sorts of activists when they get attacked and threatened by people on the far right. Mechazkim, which means strengthening, which is an organization that does political content online. They have a very elaborate online political content platform. Mitvim, which is a think tank, which works on, its mission is to improve Israel's foreign policy. And I could go on and on. There are dozens and dozens of these organizations, and the New Israel Fund is central to all of them. The last thing I'll just say, by way of just sort of giving you a sense of the maybe emotional tone of the trip, I always say when I come back from these trips that it is both depressing and inspiring. It is depressing because you really see up close the very, very entrenched problems in Israeli society. It is not all blue and white, singing Hatikva, dancing the Hora. It's not that. And at the same time, you are meeting with the social activists and justice activists who get up every morning and fight the hard fight to make Israel the kind of democracy that they believe it ought to be and that we want it to be. And in that sense, it's deeply inspiring.
So we'll give you just a couple of snapshots of the people and the kinds of people, the kind of categories of work that we witnessed and learned about. One category for sure is activists in the human rights community, all of whom are supported monetarily and humanly, existentially, by the New Israel Fund. We spent some incredible hours with people, Israeli Jews who do human rights work related to Gaza, to Gazan, the access that people in Gaza have to food and water and medical care. One is called Gisha, which means access in Hebrew, and one is called Physicians for Human Rights in Israel. We were sitting in the presence of people who were experts in every element, the ins and outs of what gets into Gaza and what can't get into Gaza, what Israeli law allows and what doesn't allow, what international law allows and what international law actually does not allow, why the Israeli government thinks that they can hold back certain kinds of aid. And in a number of cases, these organizations, Gisha and Physicians for Human Rights in Israel, have brought cases to the Supreme Court of Israel and succeeded in telling the Israeli government that some of the things that they were doing were in fact not in alignment with international law. And we met with one of my favorite activists in Israel, now rabbi, just recently ordained, Rabbi Avi Dabush. I could go on at some length, who's the executive director of Rabbis for Human Rights. Himself, he grew up Mizrahi, Likud family, sort of right-wing, lived much of his life not in the fancy northern suburbs of Tel Aviv, but in the what's called the periphery in Israel, the small towns in the Negev, and has really learned what it means to do justice work side by side and shoulder to shoulder with Palestinian citizens of Israel in partnership with the Israeli Jews of the area. Avi and his family were in their safe room in, well, now I'm blanking, Kibbutz Nirim for 12 hours on October 7th, waiting for the army to come. They eventually came as little children, aged 7 and 5, who somehow kept quiet through all those hours, released. He's now, the people of the kibbutz have now been evacuated, he among them, and yet still he is on every bima, on every raised platform, calling out the message of the prophets, the message of Jewish tradition in favor of peace, working with Palestinian citizens of Israel to say, we need to do something differently. We need to hold up an image of peace and justice for this land.
Back in May in particular, but it continues to be true today, one of the things that's most striking when you visit Israel were the protests and the signs. Just as there are here, I noticed them in the foyer as I walked in. There are signs literally everywhere. You can scarcely walk 50 feet anywhere in the country without seeing signs about bringing the hostages home. It is an overpowering experience everywhere you look. There are also mass protests that happened. We were in Tel Aviv on a Saturday night, and we joined one of those protests with thousands upon thousands of people as far as you could see filling the main thoroughfare in Tel Aviv, protesting against the government, protesting to push the government to make a deal. Iska achshav, they said, a deal now, make a deal now, whatever it is, bring our hostages home. There is no price too high to pay. It has to happen now. And this was the theme over and over again that we heard from many, many people. Some of those signs were particularly poignant. One of them, there were hundreds and hundreds of them, and people wearing T-shirts, and I could go on about the signs themselves. If we had audio-visual here, I could put up pictures of some of those signs. But one in particular was read Am Chatuf Be'artzenu, which translates a people captive in its own land, referring to the sense that the people have that they've been held captive. The entire nation, not just the hostages, the entire nation has been held captive. And it's particularly poignant because it's a play on the words of Hatikva, the national anthem, Am Chofshi Ba'artzenu, a free people in our land, right, which is the goal and the dream of the Zionists. So that was among the more powerful experiences we had. In addition, we went to a smaller protest of the hostage families the following day. They happen every single day on that spot at 5 p.m. in the afternoon. They walk out onto the main thoroughfare, they stop traffic, and they start a count. Today is one day of the hostages in the hell of Gaza. 2 days of the hostages in the hell of Gaza, and they continue to count until they get to whatever day it is. We're now reaching, of course, 365 days. That takes some time, and it is immensely powerful simply to recite the number of days that the hostages have been held captive. That will, I think, stay with me for the rest of my life. I'll go on to talk just very briefly about a couple of other things. I should have said earlier, if you're interested in more information about the New Israel Fund, you'll find it on the table next to the water. I'm looking at it straight back through the main doors to the sanctuary. Feel free to take any of that literature home with you. But among the things that we saw that were particularly disturbing, there were low points. We went to a place called Wadi Khalil, which is a small Bedouin village, which...
In the south of Israel.
In the south of Israel. These are Israelis. They are Israeli citizens, Bedouin citizens of Israel. They have rights. They vote in Israeli elections. They also have they're a depressed and impoverished community, by and large. They live in very small villages. And there was a particular place that we went where we visited one of these villages, which was in ruins. Why was it in ruins? Because the Israeli government had decided that they wanted to build an extension of a highway that would go through that place where the village sat. The village, by the way, is probably smaller than the area on which Beth Am sits, if you take the entire campus that we're sitting in. That's how large this area is. The people in the village protested. They didn't want to move. The government offered to move them. They didn't want to move. They fought a battle in court, and they lost. And the court basically said, the government offered to move you, even though you didn't want to go to the place the government offered you. Still, you have to move, and if you don't move, the government has the right to raze the village which they did. So the village was in ruins. The highway has not been built. The money for the highway has not even yet been allocated. But the people have been forced to leave the village that they lived in for generations. We visited another small town in the Negev, which I won't go into, not in the Negev, I apologize, in the West Bank, a Palestinian village called Susia, which has a long and very complex history. But the bottom line is that this is a small Palestinian village surrounded by many Israeli settlements in the West Bank, and we met there with a human rights activist. We couldn't meet in his home as planned. They were planning to serve us lunch in their home, but the army spontaneously, because we were there and because one of the settlers got angry with us, decided to call the army, and they declared it what they call a closed military zone, which meant we weren't allowed to go into the village, notwithstanding the fact that there are people moving back and forth all the time. That said, we sat by the edge of the road at the entrance to the village and listened to Nasser talk about the ways in which the current situation on the West Bank is unlivable, basically, for Palestinians. And that was an enormously powerful experience as well.
Now comes the really hopeful part. The peace activists who always make my heart sing, but under these circumstances, even more so. We met a man named Maoz Inon, who is now a world-renowned peacemaker. He had been a kind of interfaith entrepreneur in the north, in Nazareth, trying to bring Jews and Christians and Muslims together in the depressed city of Nazareth. His parents lived in the town of, not near, in Netiv HaSara, and he found out right away that they were incinerated in their home. He learned that immediately. And on the night of October 8th, as he tells the story, he had a dream that he and other people were standing on the land with tears flowing down their faces and their bodies, and then the tears turned into blood, and the blood soaked the earth and somehow nourished the earth, and the blood then extended in the direction of a path, and he woke up on October 9th and realized that he had been invited to walk the path of peace. And at first, he asked himself, how am I supposed to know how to do this? And then he realized that everything that he needed to do this work, he had already been given by his parents. And so he has been all around the world. He and a Palestinian partner had an audience with the Pope. They have a TED Talk. They've been in every place imaginable. They created one of the largest peace collaborative Israeli-Palestinian peace events in history, with an inspiring image, vision. And he says, you can't get from where we are now to someplace radically new without articulating a vision and a dream. And the dream is that even though it looks unlikely on the ground right now, if we could actually look one another in the eye and see that the others are human beings, we are human beings, we all want the same things for our lives, for our children, for our families. We need to do something different now, because what we've been doing for the last 100 years is not helping anyone. We met with Yonatan Zeigen, whose name perhaps you've also heard. His mother was Vivian Silver, one of the most beloved and best known peacemakers in all of Israel. She was involved in co-creating almost every collaborative Israeli-Palestinian peace organization that you could think of. One that comes to mind is Women Wage Peace, but many others as well. She lived in Kibbutz Be'eri, which of course you've heard of. At first it was thought that she'd been taken captive, and people all over the world were praying for her and imagining, because she was such a gifted relationship person. People imagined that she was kind of making peace with her captors, and there was all kinds of images about what Vivian was doing in captivity, except it turned out that she had been killed in her own home. And her son, who had not been a peacemaker by training, he kind of teased his mom, oh, gee, Mom, can't you just be like a grandmother like everybody else now at this point in your life? Realized after they got up from Shuvah, having learned, in fact, that she had died, that he had to set aside the life that he had had before and become a full-time peacemaker as well. And he, too, speaks this extraordinarily inspiring language that we've all had truths that we've held in our heads, and they have led us astray. And it turns out they actually weren't true. All the stories about hate and impossibility are only true to the extent that we repeat them to ourselves, and that Palestinians repeat those same stories to ourselves. And there is no way from here to there by military action. We heard over and over again on this trip, there is no military solution to this conflict. I won't ask you, but I'm tempted to have us all sort of recite, there is no military solution to this conflict. The only way that there can be a solution eventually, we're obviously, God knows, very far from that right now, is by talking, is by investing particularly the Jewish genius that we're so proud of, investing not in military and not only, of course, we need to continue to protect ourselves until the day when peace comes, but until we invest in a different kind of vision. And finally, these people are all my favorites, a young woman named Mai Pundak, whose father was also a world-class peacemaker involved, really an architect of the Oslo Accords, who runs an organization called A Land for All, which perhaps improbably, it's taken me some time to convince Louis that this was really something worth considering. The image is of creating in the Middle East something like the EU. 2 states with boundaries, borders, with security arrangements for sure, but with relatively open borders so that you don't have to move 500,000 Jewish settlers out of the West Bank, which is one of the reasons why a 2-state solution is impossible right now. We're not going to move 500,000 Jewish settlers from the West Bank, but this is a way of imagining that there will be 2 states, in Israel and Palestine, but you can live in Hebron, outside of Hebron, and be a citizen of Israel. Or you can visit Haifa. You can visit as a Palestinian. You can spend time living with your family in Haifa, but be a citizen of Palestine. So a whole new idea of what 2 states would look like, with somewhat porous, safe but somewhat porous borders, and eventually some kind of umbrella structure that would govern some aspects of the lives of people there. Does this sound unlikely? Maybe at the moment where we find ourselves today, perhaps it does. And Mai Pundak just loves to say we are never going to get to a different kind of place until we have a different kind of vision. And we need at least to be allowing our brains and our hearts to imagine that something else is actually possible, if there's any chance for this war to be the last war. And so I want to conclude with 2 things that leapt off the page at me from your Siddur. One is the following: help us to live with fear and conquer rage. Heal the hate that makes us kill, I would add, that makes other people kill us, surely, and that makes us kill. Oh God, bring some kind of healing so that all of this rage, all of this hate, all of the dying, and all of the killing can be healed and turned into something radically different, which is peace and justice for all the people of this land, so that all people may be safe and all people may be free. And I dare say, may it be that even in this year to come, that there will be some progress with God's help to remember us all for life, all the people of the region and all of the Jewish people, that we be remembered for life, for blessing, and for peace. Thank you so much. Shabbat Shalom and Shana Tova.
Thank you so much, Rabbi Eilberg, Dr. Newman. So wonderful to have you both here for sharing your journey with us. We are certainly in need of healing this evening in our own lives, in our world, in the Middle East. In particular, as we turn to our prayer for healing on page 77, we're sending prayers of healing of body or spirit to Ginny Anderson, Arnie Brookstone, David Ben Devora, Diane Denenberg, Mark Cohn, Ron Cote, Abigail Covert, Marty Gelman, Moritz Huppert, Aaron Levinson, Norman V. Martello, Myron Nessen, Harvey Rabin, Bobby Rosencrantz, Dorothy Sachs, Stefan Maximilian Sizer, David Baruch Ben Simona, Karen Stromberg, and Larry Wortman. If there are others that you're thinking of in need of healing, I invite you to share those names with us at this time. Page 77. We offer this prayer for Israel. Eternal God, receive our prayers for the peace and security of the state of Israel and its people. Spread blessing upon the land and upon all who labor in its interest. Protect Israeli soldiers as they defend our people against missiles and hate. Protect the innocent among the Palestinian and Lebanese people, that they may be safe and free from death and injury. Inspire Israel's leaders to both defend our people and follow the ways of righteousness and compassion. Remove from the hearts of our people fear, hatred, malice, strife, and vengeance. May the Jewish people scattered throughout the earth stand strong in solidarity with the state of Israel in times of war and peace, and may they be infused with the ancient hope of Zion. May our people be encouraged by the symbol of Jerusalem as the eternal city of peace. May the state of Israel be a blessing to all its inhabitants and to the Jewish people everywhere. May she be a light to the nations of the world. We say together, Amen. If you are able, I invite you to rise as we turn to Aleinu L'Shabeach, page 78.
Aleinu L'Shabeach L'Adon HaKol, Latit Gdula L'Yotzeh Bereshit, Shelo Asanu K'goy Ha'aratzot, V'lo Samanu K'mishpechot Ha'adama, Shelo Sam Chelkeinu Kahem, V'gor Aleinu Elohim HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
Page 80.
ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
You can be seated. Just a couple of quick announcements. First, our tzedakah box this month, throughout the month of October, is going to support the Hostages and Missing Families Forum that's working through a number of channels to try to bring back the 101 hostages still being held in the Hamas captivity, to bring them back safely and hopefully bring an end to the fighting as well. Encourage you to give generously if you're able. A bit about the weekend. Tomorrow morning, Rabbi Nambi is leading Torah study at 9 a.m. in the Beit Kahila, followed by Torah Minyan will gather in the Beit Kahila as well in person, or you can also stream that from home as well, but encourage you to come in person if you're able. That's at 10:30 tomorrow morning. Tomorrow night, as an opportunity to really lean into wherever we're sitting in this moment, as we approach the anniversary of October 7th. We've got a really beautiful concert called Songs of Healing in a Post-October 7th World, put together by spiritual director Susan and poet Susan Lax and Israeli singer-songwriter Shira. Should be a really lovely evening. It's tomorrow at 7:30, a reception, and then the concert will start right about 8 o'clock in here tomorrow night. And then on October 7th, on Monday night, we'll be gathering along with the rest of the Peninsula community at the OFJCC, the Ashman Family JCC, to commemorate the one-year mark of October 7th. I believe that begins at 7 o'clock. At this time, we're going to move outside to our outdoor chapel as we dedicate our memorial plaques, which is our custom as part of Shabbat Shuvah and this period between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. I want to just note that if you look outside, you'll notice that it's dark. But we all have these phones with flashlights on them. So I'm going to encourage you to, before you get out there where it's dark, figure out how to turn on your flashlight. We're going to walk out through these doors and gather just in front of the bima in the outdoor chapel. Yeah, bring your prayer books as well,
I'm going to grab my phone.
because we'll do Kaddish out there as well.
Do you have your phone? I'm going to grab my phone.
Yeah, I think it'll push. Yeah, it should stay. All right. Hello, hello. Well, it's not very... It's nice in my mom's game. Let's see. Patrick, is that speaker on out here?
It doesn't sound like it. to
Doesn't
me.
sound like it is. Will you As you're coming in, come all the way in, just so the people behind you have space to fill in as well. Just watch the roots. It's really uneven out here. It's a good combination, darkness and
And-
obstacles.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Check, 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 check. I'm going to keep talking. Okay. Yep. All right. Excellent. Come on out, everyone. As we prepare for our prayer of memory, read this poem by Mary Oliver, page 83. In Blackwater Woods, look, the trees are turning their own bodies into pillars of light, are giving off the rich fragrance of cinnamon and fulfillment. The long tapers of cattails are bursting and floating away over the blue shoulders of the ponds, and every pond, no matter what its name is nameless now. Every year, everything I have ever learned in my lifetime leads back to this. The fires in the black river of loss, whose other side is salvation, whose meaning none of us will ever know. To live in this world, you must be able to do three things: to love what is mortal, to hold it against your bones, knowing your own life depends on it, and when the time comes to let it go, to let it go. Yeah, I knew that wasn't going to last. Thank you. We're going to try again anyways. This week we're in the period of Shuvah, the first week of mourning for Seth Michener, the husband of Nancy Michener, father of Jackie and Greg Delman, Shannon and Jacob Woodlitz, and Megan and Eddie Miller, brother of our member Zale and Chloe Michener, Laura Michener, and Leslie Michener. We're in the period of Shloshim, the first 30 days of mourning for Paula Baldwin, Betham's former executive director, Leslie Peterson, Jeff Kern, Susan Carlson, Carol Holtzman, and Boris Kirstein. We mark the yahrzeit, the anniversary of death for Ida Abrams, Edwin Alderman, Esther Miriam Alowitz, Jane Sklovin Aptekar, Molly Barkoff, Jacob Barkoff, Charlotte Bernhard, Jonas Bressler, Marjorie Bessler, Mae Briskin, Melvin Brooks, Devorah Cascade, Milton Fetterman, Gladys Finkel, Seymour Freed, Victoria Fuller, Lev Ginsberg, Tushia Ginsberg, Ruth Goldbaum, Leonard Goldberg, Yenya Goldina, Matthew Gorin, Evelyn Greenberg, Willie Haberly, Linda Heath, Otto Hirsch, Irving Holtzberg, Arlene Hutman, Irvin Jacobs, Jacob Jones, Shirley Katz, Minnie Kaufman, Flora Kaufman, William Kleinfeld, Boris Krasnick, Nathaniel Krass, Raphael Krivoshi, Laura Less, Gerald Lobel, David Lornazov, Sadako Maera, Elizabeth Meltzer, Lilia Nechemkina, Lazer Pesachinsky, Judith Rosner, Solomon Rotwein, Andrew Rudin, Leatrice Rusoff, Helen Sack, Gittel Leah Sadoff, Irvin Sandler, Sarah Schieber, Ruth Skrodsky, Rose Schreier, Elaine Selznick, Avraham Sandrovich, Rose Serabrenny, Sydney Serabrenny, Ruth Singer, Milton Stern, Dr. Judith Steiber, Laura Sussman, Harry Sussman, Edward Teague, Eric Tessler, and Dorothy Weber. And tonight we dedicate these memorial plaques: Donato Tony de Sopo, Judith Eisner, the Honorable Charles Chuck Gordon, Daniel Hurst Kaplan, Susan L. Markowitz, Eva Elizabeth Monastersky, Anna Nechenzi, Lenore August Page, Nancy Weeks Rawson, Joel Norman Rawson, Nathan Rubin, John David Stevens, Elaine Weil Weinberg, Carly Weiss, and Leonard W. Williams. If there are others that you are remembering this evening, I invite you to share their names at this time. We join together in Mourner's Kaddish, page 86. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shmei Rabbah, ve'alma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon uvyomechon uv'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala uvizman kari v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam u'lamei almaya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei dekudesha brichu, le'ela u'le'ela mikol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama Rabbah min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'romav, Hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel v'imru amen. May the source of peace bestow peace on all who mourn, and may we be a source of comfort to all who are bereaved. We say together, Amen. We will close tonight with me dropping my phone, with that prayer for peace, Oseh Shalom, right at the bottom of page 86.
Oseh shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. 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 Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael.
So I invite those of you who are here dedicating a plaque for a loved one or friend to spend some time. If you need to know where their plaque is located, I have that information. You can come see me. Again, hold on to your flashlights. I also want to point out a new art installation that's actually in the foyer just outside the sanctuary called Kalaniot in the Valley. Kalaniot, as you might know, they're the wild poppies that grow all over Israel. And a local artist named Henriette Pont created this initiative, making hundreds upon hundreds of kalaniot, of poppies out of ceramics, including made by volunteers throughout Silicon Valley and also some of our Beth Am members. That beautiful installation in memory of the victims of October 7th. We have just a piece of the larger project in our foyer as well. Wishing you all a Shabbat Shalom and a Shana Tova. And Zichronam Livracha, may their memories all be a source of blessing. And if somebody wants to run in and grab the challah, we'll do motzi. Thank you to our board.